I'm ready. Don't worry, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Chidinma, and with
Um.
me
o-
here today is
Okay. So when you drew the hand, I thought you had stopped, Chidinma.
hello everyone, I'm Chidinma.
And I'm Ojonugwa. You can call me OJ. Welcome to Scholar Chitchat. We're your hosts on this exciting journey.
That's right. Scholar Chitchat is not just a podcast, it's a conversation, a talk show crafted to bring you a fresh, honest, and comprehensive perspective on academic scholarships, professional life, and the unique experiences of life in the diaspora or as an international student.
And we are not just talking theory, we're sharing insights from our own lived experiences because we've been there, navigating academia, chasing scholarships, and building our professional lives in a foreign land. So, a big thank you for joining us today. It's fantastic to have you on board.
We're beyond excited about this episode and we hope you are too. Get ready to dive deep, laugh with us, and maybe even learn a thing or two. So without much ado, let's jump into Scholar Chit Chat. It's going to be a journey full of stories, wisdom, and maybe a few surprises along the way.
So thanks for being here, and let's make this episode an insightful and enjoyable ride. Here we go.
So I'm really excited about today's episode, and it happens to be our first episode. And we're going to be diving into the exciting world of applying to grad school. For those of us that this is your first time of hearing what grad school is all about, so it's more of graduate school. And that's typically whatever studies you tend to do once you're done with your bachelor's degree or your first degree. We've been through it and we know that from experience is a journey filled with highs, lows, a lot of paperwork and writing. And we're really excited to be here to share about our experiences, how we got to grad school, and all the juicy stuff. So I will hand over to OJ now.
Yeah.
So yeah, OJ first today.
All right. Thank you, Chidinma. So, very exciting topic as you've introduced. And I would say the first question is going to be to you. I would like for you to share how you decided that graduate school was the next step for you, right? Like, I'm sure you had like multiple options, different things you could do. Why did you decide, oh yeah, I'm going for grad school application? And then how was it? What did you do when you decided that you wanted to explore going to grad school?
That's a very good question, OJ. I think it's funny and it's interesting in my own case because I don't know when I've not been interested in going to graduate school. I recall right from my undergraduate studies, I would always tell people, oh, I want to, study for my master's. I want to study for my, go for my PhD. So I have always been interested in that. And it comes really from a mix of, I would say, personal interest and my career aspirations. Personal interest in the context of my love for research. I've always been fascinated at the ability of the human mind to discover new things based on what they search for. That's been something that I've always found fascinating. I love reading. I don't like being redundant in a particular area. So that has always been something that's interested me within the context of my personal interests and career aspirations. I have a vision. I've always had a vision of where I want to be, and I know that going further or going to grad school is, a huge key to me having that. So in summary, I would say in my terms of my decision to go further my studies, it would be a blend of my personal interest in research and my career aspirations. Now, about the question you asked, what the initial process was like for me. I think the initial process was not an initial process. It was a state of confusion at first because I'd heard about a lot of things. Oh, this is what you do. And I must specifically state that I studied for my undergraduate degree in Nigeria. And so I knew that for grad school, I wanted to do that outside the country, outside Nigeria. So it was the first stage, it was my first hits or process started with confusion, right? What do I apply? What do I even want to study, right? I had my bachelor's degrees in medical laboratory sciences. Do I want to go further in that? So the process looks, if we're having like a cycle, my process started with confusion at first, but then I think somewhere along the line, which is one of the reasons why I love the fact that we're having this conversation, is that it's transcended to an extensive search into potential programs and universities, and then finally to the point of clarity. However, I would say that a key ingredient to that was the people around me, and this is something that we're going to talk about. So I started with confusion, a little bit of search, mostly help from people, and then clarity.
Okay, that was very, very interesting, because I can say I resonated greatly with your answers, just to be honest. So for me, it's people who have known me for a long time would also say, I mean, you know how like people project stuff on you just by knowing you. Like nobody had a conversation with me. Like I did not necessarily go about telling people, oh, I'm going to go for my PhD, but it was just something that people just kind of, I don't know whether I gave up the vibe or something like that. Something I know I always was going to do. And I remember like after my undergraduate, so as well I completed my bachelor's in Nigeria. And after that, I had a family friend who had just returned from the UK for her master's, and then she just called me and she was like, oh, what are you doing now? What are you doing? You have to go to the UK. I mean, you have to leave the country and apply for graduate school. And to be honest, my final results had not come out. This is how like I had just finished my results, defended my project, and then I got home, and then that was the conversation, like the first time I saw her after all that. She was like, you have to. And she was like, I'm going to call you this evening, and then you're going to tell me what schools. It was like, Research Canada. Research. It's very funny. So she's like, Research Canada, and I'll call you this evening, and then you will tell me the schools that you have chosen, and then we'll talk about it. Like, she was so invested, like, and I'm grateful for that, for those kind of, as you said, the people around you, right? I'm grateful for that kind of thing, and which is why like having this podcast help, because not everybody gives off the vibe. Like there are people that have interest, it's like have an interest in this, but like you see them and they don't necessarily give up the vibe of, oh, this person is going to be somebody that wants to go far in academia or go to grad school. So that was quite interesting. So for me, again, I think it always starts, I agree with you when you say like it starts from the place of confusion. I think it always starts from the place of confusion, because I mean, I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but at that point I wasn't thinking about, like, as I said, my final result was not out. So she's like a woman, like a mommy to me. And so she told me, and so she propelled me to like actually like not just think about, I didn't have the time to even really think about it. I just like plunged into it, and then I started like searching for, I said research. I started researching, okay, what are the universities are there? What kind of programs are there? I studied microbiology. As I said, it's like, do I want to continue microbiology? I mean, to be honest, from this beginning, I knew that I didn't really enjoy lab work. I mean, at that point, I thought it was because of like limited resources in Nigeria, right? I know you did medical lab science, so probably I'm assuming it's about the same thing. So I thought it was because of the limited resources, it was like very just unnecessarily stressful. But it was like, I don't think I want to go through this. So like doing any postgraduate in Nigeria was again out of the question, right? Because it was like I knew that there was a very big gap between what was obtainable in Nigeria, even in my university, and what was actually happening in the real world in science. Like when you read papers and you don't even understand what they are doing, I was like, this cannot be it. And I had to go for a cutting edge, up-to-date, recent stuff. So yeah, again, it was abroad. It had to be outside Nigeria. And then I don't really enjoy lab work, so I had to be like, what do I enjoy? I liked microbiology. I liked the concept of studying microorganisms. I did not like lab work, so I had to find like what was at the intersection between those two things. How could I exclude lab work from working with microorganisms? So that was research, right? So yeah, research is definitely a very, very key stuff. So before I go into sharing like how I actually like landed on a program I decided to do, what advice would you give those people who are considering grad school? Like, how do they choose the right program for them?
So I think that there are a couple of things that comes close, and I love what you said about wanting. I think one of the key things I picked up from what you just said last was that desire for more. I think that that's like a foundation to being able to get anything at all generally in life, particularly as it regards to making applications to graduate schools. So in terms of advice, I would say there are a couple of things. Oh, really a plethora of things. Where do I start from? So I think number one would be probably to start really early and understand the process. That would be the first thing I would say, because I think that oftentimes like the excitement really gets us so so ready to move that we forget that there is a strategy and then there's a process to these things, right? So I remember when I became, of course, I knew that I wanted to study. I started trying out schools in Australia. I don't know why I think I know
Australia.
I searched for Australia. So I think I was working in a lab.
I'm curious. I'm curious. Why Australia? I'm serious.
Yeah, I was working in the lab at that moment. So we call our senior laboratory scientists, we call them chiefs. So my chief told me that, just his wife was studying in Australia. He told, he painted Australia so good and perfect. And I mean, Australia, it's a wonderful country. So that's sold that vision to me. Now, remember what I said, that I think first thing would be to understand the process and be strategic. I searched for, I don't want to call the name of the university. So I searched out for the program. It was completely new to me. I didn't know anything about NADA. So I don't know if I sent them an email or anyway, something happened. And then they kept sending me emails about these scholarship opportunities. Now, at that moment, I was so confused, right? So at the end of the day, it turned out that they were offering me like partial scholarships. I didn't even know that I needed it. At this moment, I didn't have an international passport, to tell you how excited I was. I didn't have an international passport. I hadn't written any English testing exam, which was a requirement then. I was just like, I'm ready to apply. So I would say that, the first thing I would encourage anyone is to really understand the process, understand that there are key things that you require. And subsequently, I had someone who was a mentor and who still is a mentor to me. So I remember we had a conversation. He had gotten his scholarship and was about traveling outside the country. So we had a chat, and then he asked me, do you have a jotter? I was like, yeah, I have a jotter. So he brought out I brought out my jotter, and then he wrote down a list of the things that I needed, and then the deadlines that I needed to get them. So first of all, he started with my application documents, right? I needed to get them really early ahead of the application cycle. And I think that he helped me understand that there are application cycles, right? You don't just wake up anytime in the middle of June and like, wow, like I have to apply for this, right? So I think that's one of the first advice I'll give to anybody. Understand the process. It could mean you watching YouTube videos or whatever. I mean, it's good that you're here on Scholar Chitchat, so we're going to walk you through that anyways. But it's good to understand the process. And I think that in terms of choosing the right program, I ended up not like you. When I was I just knew that I did not really enjoy working in the clinical settings, right? Mine was not necessarily probably because of the lack of tools. I think mine was, I just felt it was boring, right? And I didn't have to do the same clinical tests every single day. So I kind of just knew this wasn't really for me. However, I didn't know, I later went on to do my master's, study for my master's in public health. But I didn't know that it was going to be public health, right? So I started interning in an organization, and then that was when I realized that I really do love this, right? So I think that, except you have a very clear, you're clear on what you want to do, I'll say give yourself time to really explore, like, what do I really know? What am I passionate about, right? You can have like a couple of courses down. And then, of course, it's good to also study something that is really marketable. But I think that outside our context, that is really, really subjective, or rather objective, because what we define as marketable in Nigeria or in Africa does not necessarily translate to that in the global context. So I would say that, as I think the third thing in terms of narrowing things down, and I know I've said a lot, So what I did for myself was that I am a bit old school, so I like jotters and pens. So I I got this jotter, which thankfully one of my friends, and I don't know if she ever gets to listen to this, shout out to Joy. She was one of the major persons that propelled me to, she was just that friend that you needed. Everybody needs a Joy in their life, to be honest. So she was also walking through the process, but she had everything already, pretty much figured out. So she shared her steps. So she had like a jotter with different columns, right? So there was the name of the school, the application deadline, the program, right? And then, the required documents. So that made it easier for me. I don't think that, this is my personal opinion, the reputation of the program for me did not necessarily rank high. I think that practically for my master's in public health, because I knew that I wanted more analytical skills, I was more key on the course content, right? Because public health is a very huge field that is offered by different schools, but then there are different aspects of public health. So there's a project aspect of public health, there's a research part of public health. So I really needed to hone my research skills. So I chose my University of York, because it had the right course content. I honestly, I didn't know it was such a very good school until I arrived in the UK. But I was just so excited because I love the content. So I think that's something that is really important, because now I'm done with my master's. I'm really excited, right? So I think in summary, right, understand the process. Don't just focus on the reputation. Have a clear strategy. Understand the application cycle. Look at the faculty and then resources and probably overall culture of the university. Some people tend to feel much more safer to be in a university that has more representative or diverse population. So if that's a thing for you, that's also something. Yeah. So I don't know if you had similar experiences with me, OJ, or was yours a bit different?
First of all, like you said a lot. I have to I had to get a pen and a note. I was like, me and Pat have gone through this process, but I have to write some of these things down because I'm serious. So I wrote some of them down, and they have been they were really nice. I would first start by saying, yeah, I wish I had someone like Joy, to be honest, that shared that had this spreadsheet and knew what to do and just held my hands through stuff. It wasn't that straightforward for me. But I would say that one thing that I did, which is quite similar to what you did, was trying, for the particular course itself, the particular course I chose to do. So I did, my master's was in One Health, and to be honest, until I was applying for that program, I had never heard of what One Health was. But I'm serious, it was when I saw master's, I was like, what is One Health? And I googled it. I was like, okay, this is interesting. And then I put in an application for it, and then I got in. But before then, one thing I was doing between my bachelor's and the grad school, which is something you said, which is explore, right? People talk about a lot of people don't realize how very important that is, right? You want to explore, you want to, and I feel I know that a limitation to that in Nigeria is just the lack of resources, but you don't necessarily need a lot of resources to actually explore. And I would say not just resources, lack of opportunities as well. But now, at least thanks to the internet and making the world a global village, you could also do a lot of things virtually. And I would say a good way is just not saying no and seizing every opportunity that comes your way, right? Seize opportunities. I remember that time because before the master started was when COVID hit, so everybody was on a lot of people were on lockdown. So that was when I was completing my NYSC, right? So I went back home, and then that was when all this Coursera, all of them were doing free. So there was free learning for everybody. You could get the certificate actually. And then that was it. I was exploring like crazy. I did courses in epidemiology. I was hearing things for the first time. And after my bachelor's, I was like, what is going on? And then when I wanted to apply for graduate school, and then I spoke to people. So I spoke to my brother who had completed his master's then. But we're in different fields, right? I'm in life sciences. He was in social sciences. So completely different. But he had also dabbled in some kind of health research for his master's, because social sciences and biology kind of goes together. So I was telling him, I want to, because I did epidemiology courses a lot and I really liked the concept. So I was like, I want to study epidemiology for my master's. What do you think? So again, having people, and you talked about having a mentor, which is very, very important, right? You want to have people who have kind of gone ahead of you, who would help you. And can talk about mentorship for a whole episode. Mentorship is a completely different thing, right? So like so yeah, I spoke to him and I was like, I want to do it. And he was like, oh, don't study epidemiology. He was like, anybody can be an epidemiologist. No shit, epidemiologist. He was like, I'm a geographer, because he studied geography. He was like, I'm a geographer, but right now I do health geography, and that is much basically epidemiology. Try and check out. Have you heard of bioinformatics? I was like, no. He was like, go and check out what that is. You may like it. So that's also when you talked about what is marketable, right? What is marketable and exploring options. So those were the two things for me at that point. It was like exploring options, taking courses made me like find out what's there. But then when it came to what's marketable, what is like cutting edge, what is the world talking about, not Nigeria, because I mean I remember I seen this where they put like microbiology on the top of the list of it was law, then microbiology list of people who don't have any employment prospects. And to be honest, I bought into it. I remember telling somebody that I bought into the school and scam thing at a point in my academic journey, even though I'd always like being very enthusiastic about academia. But like when I thought about like the local context, like where I was, right, looking at my surroundings, it was looking like scam, right, because I could not see what was in it for me. But as I said, thinking global, right, what is marketable beyond your current environment. And then I checked out what bioinformatics was, and I found that, oh, this is interesting. I knew nothing about it. And then once again, it was during COVID, so it was still my exploration time. And then I took a course, did an internship virtually, actually 100% virtually. And up till now, that's not like the only formal training in bioinformatics I've had, because my master's was in One Health, which was completely different from bioinformatics. But now I do bioinformatics, so very interesting. But yeah, that's one thing as well. Like people who do stuff, they just don't say no to opportunities to learn. I think that's one very important thing that people have to know. So it helps. So choosing the right program is just that, like, you have to explore, you have to be open to learn, you have to have like the right mentors, you have to be talking to the right people. And I'm thinking that you mentioned the application cycle as well, understanding the application cycle, and I think that's something that would have to talk about better, like in subsequent episodes. And then spreadsheet, I wonder if you will be okay with like sharing just what that looks like what kind of things you have to look out for when you are applying for stuff, what is very important, and maybe just putting a link to a spreadsheet that just has those kind of titles as well would be helpful. But I think also, as we would try to create a spreadsheet that will be helpful for people after we talk about applications more detailed, I think, in another episode. What do you think, Chidinma?
Thank you very much, OJ. I think that probably before I talk about your last question about having an Excel sheet, I think that that's such a wonderful idea, because it helps you keep track of what you want to do. There is always an illusion of progress, except when progress is trackable and traceable. And I think that what you said about identifying the right course or what to study is usually like a journey for different people. But I think that one thing that, and it's a quote which I keep very dear to heart, is I think it was TD Jakes that said that if it's not the thing, it would be the thing that leads to the thing. So at times we start off not knowing, like, this is what I want to do, right? I had never heard of epidemiology before, right? In my own case, until I started interning in an organization, I never knew there was anything like that before. So I think that, like you said, the key thing is not to say yes in such a way that you don't really have any other thing else, or you have your your itinerary or your schedule overly clogged. But then just saying yes helps you to identify what you want and then what you don't want and how to go for that. So for anyone still thinking, oh, am I sure I'm in the right thing? Don't relax. Don't fear. Don't be afraid. Rather, I would say if it's not the thing, it could, re-echo what TD Jake said. If it's not the thing, it could be the thing that leads to the thing. So that's still something that is good. So in terms of the Excel sheets, I would say that it's really good to have something that is personalized to you. I've seen a couple of samples from people, and yes, I think it's awesome. We'll probably have like a generic one that we're going to share the link to. but make it what you want it to be for you in a way that is really helpful for you to like keep track of things. I know I've trying to like use a financial like budget thing on Excel, downloading different templates. Like, I don't know, for me, I want to work with my own templates that is easy for me to understand, so that you could be like me, or you could just want a template. But yeah, it would be very helpful to do that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chidinma. So I mean, we could go on and on. So there's a lot of things involved in graduate school application, right? This is just like the tip of the whole thing. There's the personal statements, there's finances, because grad school is super expensive. There are other parts. I mean, we talked about this checklist where you mentioned having just a passport, and then there's the transcript, and then there's the letters of recommendation, and then there's the standardized test. Like, those are all like different parts of the whole thing, right? And I think those are things that we will continue to talk about, but because we have run out of time, we would say that you have to join us subsequently. So we've covered a bit in this like first few minutes, and I would just say join us for more stuff going forward, because we'll continue to do more, talk about more, and that's it.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you very much, Uji. And I think that probably for our next episode, we're going to be, as Uji said, delving more into more practical things, like how do you get your letters of recommendation, your personal statements. And Uji mentioned something that is so important, finances. And I have a very funny story to tell about this. And if I tell you, you're going to laugh. But I think that probably I'll share a little bit of that story as a sneak peek to push you to, I'll encourage you rather to join our next episode. So I remember, I honestly, I had really wonderful people around me. One day my mentor called me, the same mentor I talked about. So I told him, he asked about, how my application process was going. So I told him and then he said he was going to support me for one of the application fees. So interestingly, coincidentally, at that moment, I'm short-sighted, right? So I was having issues with my sight. I wanted to go for eye checkup. So when he sent me the money, I was like, graduate school or my eyes, because then I did not have money for that. So I used the money to go for eye checkup.
Oh my
and I was
God.
Now who's serious? They do graduate application. And interestingly, I later told him, he was laughing, and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I really needed at that moment because I didn't have a lot of money. So I'm going to share more tips about that much later. But so see you next time. So
All right. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Scholar Chitchat. If you found our conversation insightful and enjoyable, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe to stay updated. We've got a lot more in store and we don't want you to miss out.
We are always diving into topics like this: academics, scholarship, professional life, and the international student experience. It's what makes Scholar Chitchat your go-to podcast for a fresh perspective. Also, don't keep all this wisdom to yourself. Share this episode with your friends and family who could benefit from it. We are building a community of learners and would love for you to be a part of it.
Your thoughts matter to us. We want to hear from you. Drop your comments and questions in the chat, or send your questions, suggestions, and comments to scholarchitchat@gmail.com. Your input helps shape the future of Scholar Chitchat.
So that's a wrap for today, and we'll be back with more insight stories and chit chats in the next episode. Until then, take care, stay curious, and see you soon.